All right, my name is Matthew Bryce, and today we're going to talk about the future of digital assets in Norway. So I'll let everyone go around and introduce themselves, and maybe you can give the crowd some details about what you're doing in the digital asset space today.
Yes, my name is Torbjørn Bull Jensen. I'm the CEO of Arcane Crypto and the co-founder of Cryptographen. Cryptographen is a news page, educational page with content about cryptocurrency for people to learn. Arcane Crypto is a company, on the one hand, doing trading, both because of crypto assets, both because it's kind of profitable in and on itself, but using that trading capacity to provide financial services, leveraging the properties of crypto assets. So by creating an easy bridge between fiat currency and cryptocurrency, it's possible to create very good financial services, which is what we are looking for doing.
Hello there, I'm Sturle Skulevold. I'm Director of Operation at NBX, that is Norwegian Block Exchange. We are a spin-off of Norwegian Air Shuttle. NBX is going to leverage the technology of blockchain, DLT, and crypto, all the buzzwords. We are building a centralized crypto fiat exchange. We are building a payment solutions, and we're building software around the technology as well. I'll tell you more about that later.
Thank you. My name is Magnus Jones. I work at EY, where I'm the Nordic blockchain lead. And at EY, we do more than only auditing. We have a clear focus on the blockchain area. So from a global perspective, we have 14 core blockchain hubs all around the world, where we only have blockchain developers. And in addition, we have approximately 700 people which have in-depth knowledge regarding blockchain technology and our core business line service offerings. So in Norway, we have a team of approximately 20 people who mainly work within the legal framework of it. Among others, my colleague Mats, who's up there. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to him. So we do everything from technical implementations to assisting small, medium, large company, listed companies to assisting typically authorities, working with banks, all other stakeholders in this industry.
Thank you. And my name is Pedro Speer. I'm in the financial infrastructure unit in the Norges Bank, which is the central bank of Norway. There we have a supervisory and oversight role for the payment system. So what I do is to assess benefits and risks associated with new technology. Also, we have a project on digital central bank currencies, which I'm also working on.
Hello, my name is Manuel Lines. I'm co-founder of BitSpace and BitGate. BitSpace is a company out of Oslo. We started 3 years ago, doing events like we're doing here, crypto finance, which some of you might have visited. We do incubation and assist businesses with the implementation of blockchain technology and advise around such issues. And our biggest product that we have been working on is BitGate, which is a consumer application for cryptocurrencies, which is in closed beta now. I'm sure you heard James talk about that earlier. We're very excited about that. So yeah, that's the short version.
Nice. Okay, so I'm just going to fire off some questions, and you guys can take the mic as you wish. Do you think Bitcoin is around to stay?
Hands up.
Hands up. Just raise your hands and pass the mic.
So hands up is yes?
You can start, Torbjørn, if you want.
Yeah, just take the mic. And
I think there's no doubt that Bitcoin is here to stay. Having done the travel from this email list for cryptographers to this global kind of awareness where people know about it, and having seen this massive growth and the amount of energy put into developing services around Bitcoin, be it from the technology side, from the regulatory side, or from big financial institutions or tech companies, there's no doubt that Bitcoin is here to stay.
Yeah, no, I also agree with you, Torbjørn. I truly believe it's here to stay, and also down to the fact of when you look into all the other 2,107 other types of cryptocurrencies that are listed out there, you all have a person who is behind it, or an organization, or whatever. You have someone to identify with. So say, for example, if Vitalik says jump within the Ethereum community, everyone jumps. However, when he starts to flirt with Google, everyone says, not too sure, and then you have someone to turn against. While the Bitcoin is still anonymous as we know it, I believe someone knows it, presumably Google and some authorities, but still, officially, we don't know who's behind it. So hence, I truly believe that's also a reason for why it will survive.
Yeah, I just have to agree with what you guys just said, and I think my one aspect is that you have all these cryptocurrency blockchain platforms that are arriving now with new types of security and new types of technology in the trustless aspect of the network, and that is something that Bitcoin has that is very, very difficult to duplicate. It got the first mover advantage, and there's a whole industry backing it with a custom-made computers just for mining Bitcoins. So I think it definitely has a head start, and in one shape or form, I think Bitcoin will definitely be around to stay.
Yeah, I have written about liability for predictions, so I will be a little careful here. But when it comes to Bitcoin is here to stay, it depends on what you say, 10 years, 100 years, 200 years, then I'm not sure. So that's a safe one. I think what is interesting here is if it's here to stay, what will it be? Will it stay like it is today? Will it somehow be centralized? What will happen with the protocol in the future? So I think it's very many interesting questions to ask in addition to if it's here to stay, and that is, if it stays, what will it be?
And I would also like to add, since all of us apparently agree it will stay, and we all seem positive, this is not an investment advice sort of saying it will be volatile. Haven't said that, so I just would like to stress that as well.
Thank you, lawyer. No, I mean, I also definitely believe it will stay at least for a while. But to do a little bit of countering here, it's there are so many other options out there that actually provides so much more interesting use cases than what Bitcoin does. I'm sure we will get into that. But if not for anything else, it will stay around just for being Bitcoin, being the first one, being the large one, and having all of those interesting traits. But for many other cases, there will come a lot more interesting coins and currencies, is my belief.
Yeah. What is your current outlook on the digital asset market, particularly in Norway today?
You guys? Who's in sort of the...
Well, I don't think it makes sense talking about the digital asset market in Norway, because it's not a national market, at least not yet. So it's a global market, and of course that will change with increased tokenification, which is basically creating a claim on some asset in the physical world represented on a blockchain. And with tokenification of, for instance, property, you'll have more like local markets, because you have to know the region to be willing to trade a tokenized property in Oslo, for instance. But I don't see it as a national market for digital assets. So, yeah, I don't know.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree a little bit. What's a digital asset? I definitely see there will be an involvement in it, and we're talking about blockchain here. What's going to happen? We saw what's happening with the currencies, right? It started only not that long ago. Everybody, when the stable coins starting to arise, people are, no, this is not crypto, this is not the real thing. But what's happening now? It's coming there. This is what is driving the adoption in many use cases. It's the stable coins, and I think the digital assets. I think we will have more similar assets to that. It will be connected to something real, something familiar, something that people know, and I think that's kind of the first step when going to blockchain and digital assets. And yeah.
And I agree with you. There's at the moment there's no real market out there, sort of saying, when it comes to Norway. Neither many places in Europe either, and that's down to the fact that at the moment it's too hard for all of us up here, and for our grandma and for the taxi driver to actually buy cryptos or bitcoins or whatever. So you need a more convenient solution like the BitGate platform, for example. But we clearly see that in order to get traction of it, you need something like that. But we also see it in our daily work. We have clients who comes to us who is now trading specifically in USDC as stablecoin. Not the largest amounts, but we see the world is slowly changing, that you don't have a ordinary agreement on paper anymore. The contract is on Telegram or whatever chat group, and the payment is then in USDC or Ether, and it comes to us because they are then having challenges with, well, we are to transfer amount equal to, say, 50,000 Norwegian crowns in USDC or whatever. Will the bank accept that? How do we do the bookkeeping? All of these things. So we slowly see that it's being used also, but you don't hear about it in the media, sort of thing.
Yeah. Today, institutions are moving into the space quite heavily, and this is occurring as we speak. Are you excited for this shift, and what trends do you see evolving from this in the next couple of years?
Okay. Well, I would say it's interesting, but it also creates many new risks that's maybe not properly addressed by regulations yet, but will be. So I think that's a comment.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that signifies what we'll see in the coming years is that digital assets and cryptocurrencies, or virtual currencies, as is the standardized term in Norway, will start becoming more accessible to the consumers, to regular people, and I think that's gonna bring about a huge shift in how the space looks. We'll start seeing payment services sending. It's not only about speculation anymore. Now it's also about the use, the store of value, savings. Using as collateral for loans. There's a lot of new interesting applications coming, and I think we'll see in the coming years the introduction of Bitcoin and other types of virtual currencies into the daily life of regular people. So yeah, that's my little.
Yeah, and as mentioned, I truly believe we also need actors in order to get sort of the get a volume out there when you're talking about the Norwegian market, like having actors like NBX out there who also build in an element of trust, sort of saying, in a safe wallet structure and a setup of this, and makes it more easy and convenient to buy it. And then I truly believe we'll see that. I believe you will talk about that later, about how you guys are going to use it for not only the part of establishing an exchange and earning money on fees in handling that, but rather for the payment function of airplane tickets and also other core use case areas, as Manuel also mentioned. So it's not only about the volatility of it, but it's rather for hardcore use cases of it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's super exciting. We'll talk more about that later, but seeing all the players that comes into this field now, and the use cases they provide, and it's different use cases, everything from payment, which is huge, of course, but also adding it to the internal infrastructure that companies are doing now, because they see the huge benefits of that, to actually trading, making money on it, of course, because there's a real market out there. Like Forex, like commodities, it's happening. It's necessary to drive this forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has been said.
Yeah. How do you think the PSD2 will affect the adoption rates of digital assets?
PST is basically about access to bank accounts. So it's giving third-party providers access to bank. But an interesting feature is that then you will have platforms which are sort of independent from banks in some sense, who can provide different services. So maybe this platforms will make it easier to move between assets, and then can trigger the more diversified asset holding, not just bank accounts. That being said, that will also create new risks, of course, for the financial systems. It will be easier to move money fast, which can have systemic issues. So that's something we need to be concerned about.
Okay, I'll do it. No, I started talking. I won't stop. No, it's super interesting with PSD2 because there are so many benefits on paper, right? Being able actually to move and pay account to account, at least coming from the business perspective. But when you take a closer look at it, and will it actually happen? That's one thing in the close future. There's a lot of obstacles, of course, regulatory, technological, in general. But if it works really well, definitely there's not the same use for cryptocurrency in the payment system, or it is a solid competitor at least. But then again, for a system that works on a global level, it's not even close to competing to the cryptosphere. But then again, also if it works, it's really great for fintechs to be able to use this on the fiat on-ramp. So it's good.
Yeah, I think it'll propel the adoption of cryptocurrency because it'll bridge the fiat world to the crypto world, where you can have these fintech companies who are willing to deal with cryptocurrency, unlike most of the banks who have been taking a kind of a hands-off approach and saying no, can then actually easily set up an account for a user, where the user actually holds his or her money with, for say, DNB here in Norway. So it's in Norwegian kroner. But if this provider has access to actually take money directly from that account using PSD2, they can offer payment services leveraging the Lightning Network or a cryptocurrency as an infrastructure, and then kind of take the money from the account, exchange it directly to the cryptocurrency, and send it to the other side of the world without the user knowing. And these kind of services will be much easier in a world where PSD2 actually is kind of operational or actually working, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the big picture when it comes to the blockchain evolution for the past 10 years. It started out as a very Wild West thing where there was no regulation, there was no oversight. The cryptocurrency exchanges generally just closed down and ran away with people's money. It's been a very interesting ride to see that evolution. What we've seen for the past, 3-4 years, I guess, is that the cryptocurrency in the blockchain space has introduced a lot of regulatory or regulation and maturity. It has matured a lot, and all the exchanges that operate nowadays are very much trying to be compliant and become more compatible with the existing infrastructure, the legacy financial system. And what I think is interesting is that up until now it has only been one way. It has been cryptocurrencies or blockchain adapting to the legacy financial system. But with PSD2, we see that the legacy financial system is becoming more open and compatible with a completely digital financial system. So now the approaching goes both ways, where the financial system also takes the leap in the direction of digital finance, which means that I think PSD2 has the ability, intrinsic ability, to completely revolutionize the interoperability between crypto and legacy finance.
Just one little additional comment, because despite being optimistic, it's also some obstacles, and some of them are legal, and that I think will need to be overcome. Because let's say you have this sort of a platform, fintech platform, where you have both access to bank accounts and some cryptocurrencies, then there are different regulations for them, and also as the system, or as it matures, you will get several legal cases. I bet, for instance, if you're a platform who has sold some cryptocurrencies, what is it? Is it a commodity? And then if something happened to that commodity, does the platform has any sort of liability? So as a lawyer, I think it will be very many interesting legal issues that will arise.
Yeah. Do you think Norway can benefit from Bitcoin mining?
Yeah, sure, I can take that one. Yeah, I think it's absolutely clear that Norway could benefit from mining, especially if it's done correctly. First of all, it's relatively cold here in Norway, and the second law of thermodynamics states that all the energy will be preserved. So which means that all the energy that goes into mining turns into heat. So you can actually use that leftover heat to heat buildings, and then kind of the waste component people like to think of mining as will be reduced. The other thing is that we have bottlenecks in our power grid. And since mining can be put right next to the power plant, especially wind farms up north that is going to be built out, you can kind of stabilize the flow of electricity in the grid. So when you can kind of use it as a flexible consumption unit to optimize the electrical grid. So that's kind of beneficial for the electrical system in a way. And also, it's good for the world that mining is done where energy is clean, so that we don't pollute releasing CO2 when mining is done. And from Norway's point of view, attracting big investments in this space, for instance mining, could also attract other related investments in more human capital intense research areas. Because I mean, you don't need many people to do Bitcoin mining. It's a very capital intense industry. But once a big international player have figured out how to invest and kind of create a company in Norway, it's very easy for them to set up a small innovation hub in relation to NTNU, for instance. So I think it would attract talent and capital to the blockchain cryptocurrency industry more generally in Norway, having a mining industry here. I think it would be good for the electricity grid, and it would also be good for the communes or the local. What is commune? What's the English word for commune?
Commune.
Is it? Municipalities, which actually owns the power and can actually sell it to the highest bidder, instead of differentiating in the tax system between one kind of energy intense industry and other kinds of energy intense industry, which is the case right now. So that was my short answer.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to have an industry that purely depends on the power, and I think it's actually a good opportunity when you have that kind of industry to develop new types of power generation technology. So that's just a different perspective on it. I think it could actually drive the development of more efficient and more powerful energy generation technologies.
Just since it has been positive comments here, let me provide another perspective. No, I think that basically it's up to the market, and by that I mean that when you ask can Norway benefit from it, then it's some implicit question: should the government support it or something like that by subsidies or anything like that? And that I think is a complete different issues. One thing is to let the market decide. Another issue is if it should gain any subsidies or it should be promoted. And there I'm quite skeptical for several reasons. One reason is that I don't really see why you should, for instance, subsidize prices, because it's the cost of electricity that determines the security, not the use of electricity in itself. You might get an equilibrium where you just use more energy for the same security. That's another issue. Another issue is that Bitcoin, it's sort of a incumbent. There are competitors, and I don't see any reason why the public should support one particular cryptocurrency using one particular validation mechanism. It can only contribute to kind of segment this form of validation. So yeah, I think when it comes to mining, okay, let the market decide. If someone wants to do it, pay proper prices and do all the legal stuff correct and fine. But when it comes to public involvement, I'm more skeptical.
Yeah.
Just one quick comment. So, as an economist, I fully agree with you. The problem is that in Norway, energy-intense industry don't have to pay this extra tax on electricity. So this is not a question whether you should subsidize mining or not. It's whether you should treat one kind of power kind of intense industry, Bitcoin mining or cryptocurrency mining in general, the same as you should treat data centers for instance, Facebook or YouPorn, or aluminium refineries. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? I mean, it's very strange that we should use the elavgiften to differentiate between a YouPorn data center and a Bitcoin mining data center. I don't think that's right. I think it should be equal treatment of energy-intense industry. And whether that's with or without this special tax, I don't really care. But it should be the same treatment for different industries that are in character very similar and both legal and, yeah, no other reasons to differentiate in my mind.
And also given the fact that when you look at what the industry does, it's just moved to Sweden, and it's the same electricity that is just transported there. So it's down to look into the whole ecosystem. I agree, of course, with some of your points here, but this is an intense political question for sure. But I totally agree with you that you should not differentiate with it, not at all.
Yeah. So. We've been talking a lot about Bitcoin, but outside of Bitcoin, are there any other cryptocurrencies that you are interested in yourselves? And if so, what are they?
I can say yes, but I would not like to specify down to that as having an official EY shit going out there. No, sorry.
Well, I will be equally vague, but I think that competition is an issue. So I think that a kind of viable competition between different cryptocurrencies, if they are here to exist, is good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the competition, as you say, is is the main thing actually about the cryptocurrency blockchain space. It's permissionless innovation. Anyone could start their own cryptocurrency, and what we see now is thousands of cryptocurrencies, and only the market decides. Market has the last word of which currencies have the right to live or have any value to society. So we don't have any specific favorites that we in BitSpace. We work with all kind of technologies, whatever is best for the use case. So I think that's one of the things that it's a very important thing when you're dealing with something where you don't really know the outcome. Like who knows which currencies are going to exist 5 years into the future? Is it going to be Ethereum? Is it going to be EOS? Is it going to be Bitcoin SV? I mean, I have no idea, and I prefer to let the market handle that. And our job is to monitor what is going on and make sure that we are at the forefront of understanding the dynamics within this space.
Yeah, so I think we've got time for one more question. Everyone in this room, and yourselves probably included, are predicting a change in the market. Do you have any thoughts as to when this might be?
Sure.
Yeah?
When do you have your launch?
Exactly. When we launch the exchange, it's going up. No, we have absolutely no idea, but that's what we're hoping for, and I do believe it is going to change again, and it will be. But what you are seeing is that there are additional volume going in all the time, and that is what's interesting to keep an eye on, I think. Making sure that the technology gains popularity, it gains traction, it gains use cases, and if you don't have a super bull movement, that's not that relevant when it happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that if you focus too much on the price, you're focusing on noise. Of course, liquidity is important for these tokens and coins. I mean, they are to be tradable. And of course, it's an indication of how popular it is. Still, the massive meteoric rise that we saw in 2017 had nothing to do with the underlying development, while the crash in 2018 had little to do with accelerating underlying growth in 2018. So I think try to avoid looking too much at the price. This technology, this field is way too immature to be marked to market. And look at, as you're saying, look at the use cases. And don't listen to what big corporations say, especially not their CEOs. Look at what they're doing. Because in the media, they tend to say that we'll never use cryptocurrencies. In October, the CEO of Visa said that, well, blockchain is kind of an interesting technology, but it's for low throughput and high value, and this is basically not the industry we're in. And right in these days, they're hiring a head of product management with the particular focus on cryptocurrency and the use cases emerging there. So look at what they're doing. Look at the people they're hiring and not what their CEOs are saying.
And I also believe that we will see a movement coming up in 2019, as we have had more or less close to a year of sort of silence of being able to work on different projects, not being disturbed about a price going rocket high or falling deep down low. So and as you mentioned, Torbjørn, as well, we see big players like yesterday when IBM also released a payment function using Stellar, for example. We see more and more of these actors coming in there, down to the rumors about eBay not signing up with PayPal, even though they own PayPal. They're going to use Ripple's technology. These type of things will affect it. And just back briefly to your last question regarding what type of coins or currencies that will be there. Of course, when you guys are launching, you will probably launch or list the top 5. And I think we will see that from the exchanges, and it's easier for the average consumer out there also, of course, to do these safe bets. But personally, I also believe that we have not seen yet the blockchain that will have the largest impact on us being created yet, and neither, I believe, the token or coin as well, as looking down to the fact where we are at the moment in the world today. So that's my opinion, and I cannot give you the date, of course, but as mentioned, I believe we will see things happening in 2019, but that also depends on players like Norwegian, who has a brand name there, a reputation out there, if it's media companies coming out there doing other stuff, whether or not that's Visa or what. We need actors like that who has a trust in the market in general in order to have full traction on it.
Yeah.
I just one last comment to add.
Yeah, of course.
Because living in Norway, it's very easy to start talking about how great it is when all of these big institutions come into the market and they start leveraging this technology, and Visa and IBM becomes a part of the ecosystem around cryptocurrencies and blockchains. And I personally think that is great, because that can kind of give me even better solutions. But for cryptocurrencies and blockchains to be successful, none of this mainstreaming is necessary. Because people who are currently excluded from these institutions, from these systems, are already using cryptocurrency without these mainstream actors being a part of it. When Venezuela recently had a power shutdown, the activity in the Bitcoin blockchain dropped, because the usage of Bitcoin in Venezuela and investment in Bitcoin has increased so much because people escape their own local failing currency. So I think it's really important to bear in mind that while we will see a kind of institutionalization of cryptocurrency, we'll see kind of a centralization and corporatification of this field. Hopefully, next to that, we'll have this open ragtag revolutionary part remaining a part of the ecosystem, so that those who are excluded can actually leverage the openness and use this technology, and I firmly believe that will be the case.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No, I just wanted to make another comment about industries that we will see appear based on blockchain. I think there are a couple of industries that are ripe for disruption. I think the content production industry, journalists getting paid for writing their stuff. People generally tend to avoid paywalls, and there's no good solution for that as of yet. I think blockchain will play a big role there. Also, disrupting the music industry, content production in general, like YouTube, social media. A lot of things will happen in the next 10 years, the way I see it.
All right.
Then we'll clap.